Sharon, Citizens NYC's Neighborhood Business Grant Lead.
And hi there, I'm Leslie Branch. I am Citizens NYC's Director for Community Outreach.
Before we get started today, we want to thank all of our funders and supporters that help make our grants possible. It's because of you that we are able to do our work. If you would like to contribute or learn more, visit us at citizensnyc.org.
So, good afternoon again, and welcome to this month's Citizens NYC Live Rethink and Rebuild program. We're so glad that you have joined us here today virtually. And today we're going to be focusing on money available for community groups and small neighborhood businesses in New York City. Before we dive in, I'm here to tell you a little bit about Citizens NYC. So we were founded in the 1970s during the fiscal crisis, which was a time when many city services were shut down. Our co-founders put out calls for New Yorkers to sign up to help patrol the streets and clean up the blocks. We have been continuously supporting community leaders, stepping up and standing on the front lines of change in their neighborhoods through a wide range of grant program uh, convenings and technical support, and bring about positive impact. We are all in for New Yorkers by supporting community improvement projects and small businesses that anchor our communities and build strong relationships and partnerships that will lift up and scale up collective work. Besides our funding, ongoing neighborhood efforts to address the quality of life issues, we also amplify voices across the five boroughs. We conduct surveys, we host forums, and we bring people across our city together to generate solutions for tough problems. For example, at our recent Idea Summit, we delved into multiple themes linked to community health, such as community financial wealth, inequities, civic engagement, and volunteerism, because these all affect health outcomes for individuals and communities. We will keep capturing stories and data from neighborhoods, communities, to share with all the local elected and administrative officials so we make sure that no one in New York City is left behind.
So, Leslie, we have great news to share today. For instance, our application for All In Neighborhood Grants is live now. Tell us more about the program.
Sure. So, our All in Neighborhood Grant program, AING, is now available. It's live. And it is the grant program that Citizens has that awards up to $5,000 to community building projects that are carried out by resident led groups to address issues that they identify as important to them. So today, our grant making focus is on supporting projects that improve neighborhood life, that strengthen local leadership, and scale up community partnerships. And we also invest in neighborhood led efforts to build a New York City that benefits everyone, especially in times of crisis. Grassroots leaders, especially those who are watching, especially in low income communities, know and have what it takes to roll up their sleeves and to make change to boost civic engagement, neighborhood wealth, and community health.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So, who should apply?
So I'm glad you asked. Applications are accepted from resident led groups and nonprofits based in any of New York City's five boroughs. Examples of such groups include block associations, tenants associations, including NYCHA, civic groups, community gardens, student groups, PTAs, and staffed nonprofits. So groups can be long-standing, they can be newly established, or in the process of forming, and there is no requirement that a group have a nonprofit or a 501c3 status. Grassroots community organizing groups doing work um, that is developed and led by groups of individuals who directly experience the issue that the projects addresses important community concerns, brings neighbors together and contributes to building stronger communities, has a strong vision for social justice, and is committed to working towards movement building. So those are some of the groups and folks who should apply.
Wow. So Citizens NYC has been doing the AING grant for a while now. What are some examples of the different types of projects we fund?
So that's a great question. One project that we funded is Yala Queens, which is operating a halal community fridge for the Muslim residents and other community members who are in need. Besides purchasing groceries and soliciting donations, this group is also diverting leftover food from local businesses to sustain this mutual aid effort. Another example is Health for Youth, which is relieving the stress of COVID-19 for its Staten Island community through a plethora of programs for young folks who are in need. And Health for Youth is converting little free libraries into pantries and delivering food as well as essential supplies. And volunteers are also gathering to create a sustainable stream of fresh produce for individuals impacted by the pandemic. And volunteers are also gardening to create sustainable streams of fresh produce for the community as well. A final group, as an example, is the Harlem Swing Dance Society. And so this is a reintroduction of youth to Harlem's famous 1920s dance, the Lindy Hop. And so by appreciating the Lindy Hop's dance impact and knowing how central the Lindy Hop was to Harlem performers and entertainment businesses, the group is inspiring young people to reclaim this African American cultural art form. So, those are some examples of projects and groups that we fund.
It's pretty broad. It's great. It's all about community. So
Indeed.
how can folks apply?
So, folks can apply by heading over to our website, and we accept applications via our online platform. So, to find the link to this application, you go to our website, www.citizensnyc.org/grantmaking. You don't have to complete the application in one sitting. You are able to save your work and come back to it by creating a username and a password. And please make sure to write that information down. Uh, Before you start the application, please make sure you read the eligibility requirements at the beginning of the application. The FAQ document is located on our grant making page, and definitely watch our orientation video that goes into the details of our application. You can find those items at www.citizensnyc.org/grantmaking. And if you still have questions about the application after looking through the recommended documents, please be sure to reach out to us at grants@citizensnyc.org. You can connect with me and other staff members at our ongoing virtual grant info sessions, which are listed on our events page at www.citizensnyc.org /find-an-event. And so, finally, when is the application due? That that's something that is important to let folks know. So applications don't have a specific due date. They are accepted on a rolling basis, but we are prioritizing groups who have submitted their applications by late January. So if you'd like for us to review your application first, get them in as soon as you can. And we're now going to segue into our next grant program, which is our neighborhood business grant. So, Gina, um, what is the neighborhood business grant program? What makes it different from the Orlan neighborhood grant that we just heard about?
So the good thing is the neighborhood business grant program is similar to AING. It's about community. So AING is for grassroots community groups and small nonprofits, whereas the neighborhood business grant is for-profit small businesses in greater New York City. Citizens NYC awards micro grants to everyday New Yorkers to help them improve the quality of life for their neighborhoods, again, through the All-in Neighborhood grant cycle. But in 2020, due to COVID-19's devastating impact, Citizens NYC launched the Neighborhood Business Grant Program, also known as NBG. Neighborhood business grants provided financial support to those businesses that were ravaged by COVID-19. Our past neighborhood business grant cycle prioritized businesses owned by women, people of color, and immigrants, including undocumented immigrants who were excluded from vehicles such as PPP or EIDL loans, and also projects that modified businesses to function during COVID-19. We're excited to share our continued efforts to buoy the greater New York City small business community with the opening of the 2022 Neighborhood Business Grant Cycle. Citizens NYC recognizes the impact of neighborhood small businesses on their surrounding communities. Neighborhood businesses provide local employment. They contribute to the city's bottom line. And of course, the best thing is they encourage more entrepreneurship. Our small businesses are vital to the fabrics of their neighborhoods. Businesses that apply can receive grants up to $10,000 to maintain operations.
Wow. So thanks for that overview. And it sounds like this grant program, the NBG, is a, just in time program. And certainly our small businesses are oases in deserts, no doubt. So tell us, who should apply for this NBG?
Well, to be eligible, you must be for profit with 10 or less employees. The business must be located within the 5 boroughs of New York City. Grant applicants should expect to provide a grant spending plan, a snapshot of their current budget, and be able to show proof of ownership. We're taking applications from businesses that were generating revenue in January 2020 or prior, because a lot of new businesses were crunched by COVID-19 just as it hit, their doors were opening. Again, we prioritize businesses owned by people of color, women, and/or immigrants. But the most important and the vital piece for the eligibility is that the business needs to be able to demonstrate an element of community engagement.
Wow, so that's great. It sounds like this grant really prioritizes people who New York City resembles. And
Exactly.
that's fantastic. That is fantastic. So my next question is, how can you apply?
Well, very similar to applying for our traditional AING grant. You can apply for the Nbg grant on our online platform at citizensnyc.org/grantmaking. Applications will launch at the end of this month, and very similar to AING. The good news is you don't have to do this in one sitting, but make sure to save your user word and password. Before you start, check the eligibility list and make sure that your business is eligible for the grant application. You can find the list to guide you again at citizensnyc.org/grantmaking. If you still have questions about the Nbg grant after looking through the documents online, please feel free to reach out to us at businessgrants at citizensnyc.org. You can always connect with me and other staff members at our ongoing virtual grant information sessions, which are listed on our events page. citizensnyc.org, find an event.
Wow, so that's really some great information. And so, when is the application due?
The applications are taken on a rolling basis, so the application is always open. However, funding is not infinite. So it's best to get your application in by February 20. So Leslie, you talked about our grant information sessions where people can connect with Citizens NYC staff and learn more about our grant programs. Many of these events are in collaboration with local elected officials and other nonprofit partners. Can you talk a bit more about how someone can get involved in co hosting an event with us?
Certainly. So, one of the things that I have been doing as in my role as director of community outreach is I have been approaching electeds, other community based organizations about partnering with citizens on our grant programs so we can bring this information to their constituency, to their community. And so we have partnered with incoming electeds. We have partnered with city current electeds. We have partnered with community-based organizations such as City Harvest. We have partnered with city organizations such as the Department of Sanitation. And so, if you are interested in co hosting a session with us, definitely reach out to us at grants@citizensnyc.org, or you can shoot myself, Leslie Branch, or you can write to Gina to express your interest in partnering with us. Citizens is one of the best kept secrets in New York City, and we don't want to be a secret. We want you to get in on getting this money, leveraging that money. We want you to tell your friends, tell your neighbors, and tell your friends' friends, because we are all in for New York City, and we are our best resource to help build us back to a more equitable city.
Cool. So October seems like it was yesterday. I can't believe we're in the middle of December already. But Leslie, back in October, Citizens NYC hosted a community convening, which was super cool. What are some of the ways that community members shared how they're improving the quality of life in their neighborhoods. And what are some of the challenges and successes?
So for sure, the summit revolved around community health in all of its forms, all of the socioeconomic determinants of health. So we looked at COVID and the vaccine. We looked at violence. We looked at volunteerism. We looked at equity, just in how we move from where we are to becoming more equitable. And so the summit, which I believe recordings of it are available on our YouTube pages. We just had a plethora of things that were discussed, and a lot of the community groups that we fund, and even the small businesses, are doing the work, right? So they are addressing and tackling food insecurity by creating neighborhood food pantries and community fridges where there is isolation with young folks and seniors alike. There are programs that are being created to check in on seniors and help them get to appointments. There are external activities that are happening when students had to be educated remotely. And so there were all sorts of enrichment programs that were happening because the community saw the need and is not just waiting for government to ride to the rescue. They are taking their destiny in their own hands and doing the work. So those are just a few things that are ongoing, in community to address some of the socioeconomic challenges that we are experiencing.
Wow. New Yorkers are doing the thing, aren't they?
They are doing the thing. Yes, they are.
When working with citizens in NYC, I was already a proud New Yorker, but being exposed to all of these amazing things that New Yorkers are doing for their communities, whether it's a small nonprofit or a small business, makes me an even more proud to be a New Yorker. That said, though, I want to do a little bragging here, Leslie. Can I brag for a minute?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I want to brag about some of our grant recipients for the last cycle for NBG. In the Bronx, we gave a grant to a company called Green Developers. And Green Developers is a sustainable, energy efficient consulting firm that assists with the reduction of carbon emissions by educating commercial property owners about ways to reduce energy, save water, and practice environmentally friendly waste management practices. But at the height of the pandemic, Green Developers had to lay off their workers, a lot of whom are college interns. So you have kids in college trying to make some money while learning environmentally friendly practices, and poof, pandemic, no check for students. The owner applied for the Nbg grant, and we're excited to say that he got it. And guess what? He was able to continue to pay his interns while educating them at the same time. And that's something that, teaching young people just reverberates. It's going to go on and on and on. Another one's Enoch's Bike Shop in Hell's Kitchen here in Manhattan. And Enoch is a former bicycle messenger. He's from Panama. And he wanted to keep his doors open. I mean, do you remember when the streets were empty at the height of the pandemic?
Yeah.
Right? So he was concerned about his clients, some of whom are also bicycle messengers. And he's one of the few independently owned bike shops in New York City, but he needed funds to stay safe for he and his employees. So the grant provided a way for him to rejig the shop to keep both he and his employees safe as well as their customers. What do you have? Those are some that I'm bragging about. What do you have?
So some of the ones that I mentioned earlier, health for youth, they are based out of Staten Island, and certainly when the pandemic hit and everyone had to do school remotely, they have been a beacon in their community, just providing um, health and wellness and other educative programs for youth who are really isolated and don't really have the wherewithal and the resources. And what I love about our Orlan neighborhood grant, uh, how do you say, uh, recipients, is that they identify what the issues are because they are living them themselves. And so it's really about you know fixing or addressing what they can with what resources they have, not just for themselves, but for their community. Because what happens to the group is a proxy for what happens to the individual. And just during, I mean, New York is just the grit that they have, right? Nothing. And so as I'm having this conversation, the song that's now playing in my head is the anthem, "Ain't No Stopping Us Now," right? And so it, New York just is a city. It's a beacon, right? And so if you want to know how to do it, watch how New York City does it. Um, and we are able to make something out of very little or nothing because we believe in collective effort and looking out for one another. And so just some amazing things have been able to happen in community with micro grants that have been the saving grace for community, I would add. So I mean, clearly there are just way too many to name.
Mm-hmm.
um, but if you just walk around any of the blocks in New York City, you're definitely sure to find a Citizens NYC grantee doing good work, doing excellent work to keep their neighborhood thriving, surviving, and moving forward.
It's amazing. You know, when you said song and while you were speaking, I had everything from Frank Sinatra saying, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, to Alicia saying, let's hear it for New York.
Yes, for sure, for sure. So not everyone can receive funding. What are some of the other benefits of applying for our grants? So, of course, as we, articulated, even if you don't receive a grant, the fact that you have applied makes you part of the Citizens NYC family, right? And so if you have a project that you're working on, we are sure going to amplify your voice. We're going to lift it and raise it because, again, the work that our grantee partners are doing shouldn't be a secret. They should be lauded. They should be, celebrated. And that is one thing that we will do. Another thing, we have thought leadership programs such as Rethink and Rebuild that we are, broadcasting today. Chances are you too could be an invited guest to talk about the project and the work that you're doing in your community. When we have our next idea summit, definitely be sure to register for it because it is in community that we grow. In isolation, we shrink. And so, that you are part of our community, if you're looking for someone who provides a good or a service, chances are they reside in Citizens NYC network. And so we're happy to connect you with other like-minded grassroots leaders in our network to help you continue and advance the work that you're doing. So Gina, talk to us about that on the neighborhood business grant side of the
Well,
equation.
again, it's a mirror image. We will connect folks to our businesses, and of course, business to business plus business to consumer. We, where possible, we offer technical assistance for the business, for the small business community, as well as any kind of one-to-one meeting where necessary. So, you know what else I want to talk about, Leslie, is, why this is so important right now with these, every day it's something new in the news regarding COVID and business. And I know business folks are panicking out there, are we going to have to shut down again? What's going to happen? So this grant is so incredibly, the Nbg grant is so incredibly important right now because, at the height of the pandemic, created havoc. Running a small business is already like walking a tightrope any day. And the pandemic just was like a knife, just fraying at that rope, cutting at it. And while business declined, or in some cases came to a screeching halt, the rent, the utilities, the taxes never took a day off. So that's one of the reasons why providing these grants to the small business community is so vital. Also in several cases, businesses that are women and or BIPOC owned are running on less capital and cash flow at any given time. So imagine, a big monster called COVID hits, it really can put your business on tilt. And, those businesses that are my heroes out there, those business owners who continue to forge ahead, are moving toward recovery right now. And the Neighborhood Business Grant is that extra funding to enhance or shore up the business for the next chapter, because that's what we want for our business community, to have that next chapter.
Well, for sure, and to add to what you were saying about the neighborhood businesses, they are just so important. They are oasis in deserts. I mean, and if you think about, neighborhoods in New York City, particularly less resourced neighborhoods, they don't have places like supermarkets or things like that. So that corner store is the all important resource in that neighborhood. Um, because without it, where would the residents go to, find some of the everyday staples that they need for their households? And so those very small businesses, to your point, it's so important to buoy them, because in some ways they are the lifeline of some neighborhoods.
Are the anchors? I mean, one of our grant applicants, um, they're in a community where a lot of people, English is not their first language, and they do a lot of business translation for folks, and that's not their business. That's what we're talking about. That's what community is about.
Right. And on the Orlan neighborhood grant side, many of our seniors are just, not able to traverse the city. And again, for fear of, being exposed to COVID. And so the work that some of our volunteer resident led community groups are doing, such as, making sure seniors get to those all important healthcare appointments, or helping seniors get acclimated to using technology, and even working with youth. Just think about the learning loss that has happened during COVID, right? And so these all important community resident led groups are at the front, on the front lines, trying to stem the tide of that learning loss by working with youth who have just been so horribly impacted by COVID in terms of education. And so, it's amazing the work that these folks are doing because they love community, right? And I'm just so grateful to citizens for what they do for community. And my hope is that more people will, through public programming such as this, and with the help of sponsors and others, learn about the grant programs that we offer,
Mhm.
apply for them, and help us to help them amplify the good work that they are doing, so more people can learn about the amazing stories.
I love that you said amplify because I don't think a lot of people think about the community aspect on the small business side. So, yeah, it's really important. I love that.
For sure.
I think we have some questions coming up.
Oh, yeah. So let's entertain those. All right. So thanks for all this information. Grant writing can feel intimidating. What are some grant writing best practices, especially as a first time applicant? Hmm. So that is a great question. And thank you for that question, Katie. So, one of the things that we talk about in both the Orlan Neighborhood Grant and the Small Neighborhood Business Grant info sessions is something called the who, what, when, where, and how of grant writing. And so, when you are thinking about writing a grant for your project, think about who it is that you are working to serve. Definitely think about what it is that you want to bring to the community, whether that is a good or a service. Think also about what gap it is that you are trying to alleviate. Think about why, right? So, what is the why for the program that you are, or the project that you are trying to launch? How is very important. That involves your strategy. How will you also engage community members? Because the community engagement aspect is key for the grants that citizens provides. So I when do you plan on launching your program or your project? And so those are some very important things to think about when you are considering your grant. So centering who it is that you are serving, I would say, is key to is a key grant writing tip. Gina, you have anything to add to that?
I do because on the business side, it's again the who, what, when, where, how. Except it's a little bit different, slightly. So we want to know, and I want to first say, be authentic, right? Or for whether it's AING or NBG, authenticity will get you everywhere because we want to hear that New York heart, that and just Leslie's point. We want to hear what the grit is like on your side. So about your business, when writing the NBG grant, we want to know about your business. What's the history? Why are you in this business? What are your business goals? What's your business model look like? What kind of services do you provide or products? And who's your customer base? Who's your community? Then we also will ask you to let us know, how will the grant support your business? For example, will it construct a takeout window to minimize customer contact? Is it going to be able to afford you technology to help you to continue to service your customers? Marketing, will it help you advertise and broaden your reach? Or will it get you a new employee, maybe a new part-time employee, or someone that will help you from the gig economy so that you can focus on your day-to-day business? We want you to consider long-term value. What's How does this play into your strategy? Will it be something like a technology upgrade that will have long-lasting impact? And how will it impact your performance or your services? While we do not dictate how to use the funds, we do discourage using the funds toward general operating expenses. We want you to level up with this grant. So things like rent and utilities, while they may be considered Those are the things that we ask that you somewhat avoid if you can. And most important, what is the business impact on the community? Is it cultural? Are you out there building relationships with your community? Are you providing a critical and much needed service? Is it economic value that drives something like food traffic or helps to support other local businesses? Is it environmental? And when thinking about your budget, be thorough, specific, and prioritize. Those are some add-ins.
So that's fantastic, Gina. And for the AING grant, some of that is applicable as well. And so some things that we do discourage is paying salaries, right? So we're okay with, you know, a small stipend to volunteers, but the thrust of the grant is to improve community, excuse me, and to really uplift community, and so definitely on that side. And again, just, you know, we are New Yorkers are a resilient people. There's this saying that says necessity is the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the grant and even with community, and this is just what I love so much about New Yorkers. Um, we are able to innovate our way out of anything, right? And so think about being innovative, and how you are going to address the challenge that you are stepping up to address.
Cool.
You want to take this one, the lead on this
Can
one?
you give some more examples of how businesses may work on recovery right now? Thinking, going back to prioritizing, so incredibly important. Do exactly what you need to do to push ahead. That's number one. Number two, build an ecosystem. Strength in numbers. Don't think that you're not out here by yourself as a business or as a community group. Build a network and your own ecosystem. Trade off business monetarily, not in kind, but monetarily trade off business. And those are a couple of things to work toward recovery.
And again, Citizens has a very vast network. And so use us as a hub, right? If we don't know of someone, we can direct you to someone that knows someone. So there's also a saying that people are separated by 6 degrees. I think it's more like three.
I
Um,
agree.
you know, and so just being in community, being in the network, there are so many things that you will never find out if you're not in network, right? And so it is important to be in community. It is important to be in network. We grow in community, we wither in isolation. And if you don't know, ask,
I
right?
was just thinking the same thing, the same exact thing. Do not be afraid to ask someone. Absolutely.
For sure. So are there any more questions? If there are no more questions, what's let's see. Are there any more questions for us? All right. So we definitely thank you for inviting us into your virtual space. This has been time well spent. We really do hope to receive applications from you. Uh, we have a rolling application. Just remember, however, just because it's rolling doesn't mean to put it off until the last possible minute. We give priority to those who get them in early. If you have questions about the application, you can be sure to ask them at either our grants at Citizens nyc.org, or our business grants at citizensnyc.org, and we will do our level best to answer them. Um, and again, we thank you for everything that you are doing to keep New York City thriving, surviving, and moving forward. We couldn't do this work without you, so thanks.
I second that. Thank you. And don't be shy. Stay connected. We're here for community.